You're listening to the Traffic Handler Podcast. We're about getting new customers, making more sales, and growing your e-commerce retail business. I'm your host, Amy Biddle. My guest today is Andrea Hubbert, and she is a PR maven. Let me tell you, we had a fantastic conversation just about publicity, which there's so much more to PR, but we did a deep dive into publicity and how to apply using public relations and publicity to e-commerce brands. The takeaways from this episode are just phenomenal. So grab a cup of coffee, grab a pen and something to write with, and you're really going to get some good takeaways from this one. So this is an episode not to be missed. My guest today is Andrea Hubbert, and she is not only by her account, but by her clients' accounts too. She is a Jedi Master of media outreach. I'm so excited, Andrea, to learn everything that we can in the next little bit about public relations for e-commerce. I mean, who ever heard of such a thing? So welcome. I am really glad that you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if my clients would say I'm a Jedi Master. I just think that they know I have like the special sauce. I call myself a Jedi Master because it's the only reference that I have to that whole I don't even know, Marvel, DC, whatever comics world that's so popular right now. I saw Star Wars when it was the first one, not the fourth one.
Yep, so. Absolutely. That's how I got my start too. Star Wars was new. So let's start off and talk about what is PR, what is public relations, and why do we do it?
Sure. Yeah. So I in case your audience is not let me start again. Sorry. In case you're not familiar, there's a model called PESO, paid, earned, social, and paid. Well,
organic.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I always forget the O.
I wasn't familiar with PESO, but O had to be organic. That makes perfect sense.
It's actually owned. It's paid, earned, social, owned.
Owned. Okay.
Yes, which you can consider organic, I guess, too, right? Like owned would be your website and your e-commerce site, and those things are the property that you actually owned.
Yes.
Public relations fits in the E, the earned part. So that's when you work with the media. That's when you work with influencers who you're not paying. Okay. So there's some sort of a partnership relationship, some sort of collaboration opportunity that you're not paying dollars for, yes, or you're paying low dollars. That could also fit into earn. That's when you're doing community relations. So if you're local and you have you have a bricks and mortar, but you also have an e-commerce part, and you're doing a lot of local to drive traffic to the web portion. So maybe during COVID, for instance, you maybe were doing a lot of local stuff to drive traffic to the e-commerce. And now you want to enhance the e-commerce. Anyway, anything that you do like that, where you're not paying for any sort of outcome, is in the earned bucket, and that's where PR sits.
Perfect. Oh, that's phenomenal. Now, to my limited way of thinking, not having done a bunch of PR, I've done PR, not well and not frequently. So I know that it's a machine. I think I know it's a machine that you can feed continuously, and you don't have to be married to like PR Newswire and that whole monster. That's a monster.
Yes, you absolutely can do it on your own. You do not need a Newswire service. And in fact, even people who hire somebody to do the PR for them, a Newswire is when you're distributing a press release, and press releases generally are when you are doing a broad distribution of an announcement, right? So maybe you have a new line, or it's a new season, or a new collection, or something that's a little more evergreen, because if somebody picks it up today or they pick it up 3 months from now, the news is still applicable. They could still write about it. So that's when you're just sort of doing mass distribution through a press release. That's when you would need a Newswire. Most of what we do is, if you really want to be effective at it,
Yes.
is through the relationships that you build. And it doesn't have to take a long time to build a relationship. And um the pitches that the very specific pitch that you make
Yes.
to the person or to the outlet. So for instance, if you do have a new collection and you want to talk to lifestyle editors at major publications, right? So you do all the research, you figure out who the right editor is, or maybe the reporter directly. You make an outreach, you start, building that relationship, then you make your pitch. Well, that pitch could be an email pitch, it could be a telephone pitch. If they want, it could be a DM on Twitter pitch. It doesn't have to be a news release.
Okay. All right. Now that's cool. And I really hadn't gotten that far because what we've done in the past, just like a client said, we need to put out a press release. So, I was just following what
Uh-huh.
she suggested, but it probably wasn't the right thing. And there's a very specific format to that. And it did get picked up, it did get, like it was as seen on, so she had some of
Right.
that, so that was good. But what you're talking about is pretty advanced, isn't it?
Um, I I don't know if it's necessarily advanced, but it is definitely more time intensive, right? It's
Yes.
very easy to write a press release and push it out through a wire service,
Yes.
or to find a bunch of email addresses and just to send a press release. That's very easy to do.
Okay.
Doesn't take a lot of time, except maybe the time to draft the release.
Right.
This, though, to have more success with your outreach campaign and longevity with it, really
Yeah.
does start with identifying the right person and the right outlet.
Yeah.
Because again, we don't want to mass, we don't want to spread things in mass without having some sort of a relational tie, because the media doesn't really care about us. It doesn't care about our products and services.
Yeah.
It cares about what those products and services can do for their audience. So if there's no alignment with the audience, well, they'll never pick it up. But
Right.
if you know that and you start building the right relationships, then they'll pick it up more often, because they're like, oh my gosh, Amy, you have such quality products and services. We love when you share them with us. Our audience eats them up. What do you have? They'll even start calling you. What do you have coming up in your next collection that we can cover? Like, that's
Wow.
what we're going for. We're going for those real relationships, and ultimately where they see us as the source that they reach out to.
That's cool. Okay. All right. So let's say we're a clothing brand. All right.
Mhm.
Um, just we have our own way of talking about the clothing and the things that it does. So we're clear on that on our end. How do we reach out to develop relationships with, say, the lifestyle editors and reporters? Because I like that idea, like lifestyle. I see the BuzzFeed things all the time. Like, we couldn't live without this widget, whatever thing. So, I mean, where do you start? How do you find these people?
Right. So there's a couple different methods. If you're going for uh, traditional media,
Mhm.
let's say newspapers, so you would go to the paper's website and you would look for what's generally considered the masthead, right? So all of the listing of who the people who put the paper together, the editors, reporters, producers, not producers, well, digital producers, right? So
Yeah.
you look for that. It's probably now called the about section or the contact section.
Yeah.
So you look for that and you look for the appropriate person on there. So, if you have sustainable, if you have an eco brand, you're going to look for the person who covers sustainability, environmental, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you have, women, for instance, if you have a
Yes.
women's line, you're going to look for people who cover women's issues as well as the lifestyle. And I think this is a really important point that I just sort of accidentally backed into. There's such a thing as the known entity, right? So your
Mhm.
clothing brand, that the people who cover clothes, fashion,
Fashion.
lifestyle,
Yeah.
they're going to cover it. They're going to pick it up.
Yeah.
But is there some other angle to it that you can also reach out to somebody about? So
There's a
let's,
differentiator.
right?
Yes.
Like, let's
Right.
say all of your clothes, let's say your whole supply chain is local
Yeah.
from beginning to end, everybody is in the same city or
Yeah.
state. Well, now you're going to want to look for the metro, right? The metro desk,
Yes.
the local
Yes.
desk. You're probably even going to want to look for the business person because that's a huge
Yes.
business story because your whole supply chain
Right.
is in the state, right?
I
So,
love that.
so I think it's important that to think about all of the points of your clothing brand or whatever product you offer. Think
Hmm.
about all of the points of that and think about whose audience would have an interest in this.
Yes.
So you don't just limit yourself to the lifestyle or the fashion.
That's great.
But to answer your finish answering your question, so you're going to look up and see who that person is. You're going to see sometimes if it's a larger paper like the New York Times or the LA Times or um, the Post or something like that, they will have what's called an editorial calendar, which is where they're telling you what all their special sections for the year are going to
Right.
be. Now, that really is for advertising purposes. That's why that's created. But you can use it to see that in January of 2023, they're going to do a special section all about sustainability, let's
Yeah.
just say. And
Right.
if you have a sustainable line, you're going to want to pitch to be part of that special section.
Yes, absolutely. Do all of the news outlets publish their editorial calendar?
If they are a larger publication, they
Mhm.
will.
That's
Like
amazing.
your local paper might not, depending on how big the market is,
Okay.
might not.
Okay.
But larger ones, national ones do,
Mhm.
and magazines do.
Ooh, sweet. Okay. So, all right. So another option is online venues, blogs, news aggregators who they're going to pull content from other places, but they've got usually a small amount of original content. Are those places that we can go to for public relations?
Yes. Again, you're going to want to make sure that the alignment of their audience fits your consumer
Hmm.
profile. But
Right.
absolutely, yes. I think honestly, the more um, niche you get in the publications that you go after, or the more like kind of outside of the bubble, like thinking through, okay, somebody who enjoys travel is probably going to like my line because my line is all about easy travel, no iron, right?
Right. Right.
So if you think about people like that, right?
Yeah.
So the tangent, what's it like, the tangential connections. The
Yes.
more you can think about that,
Hmm.
the the more success you're going to have, I think,
Okay. All
right?
right.
And then also if you start small and work your way out. So you might not have something that's going to be appropriate for Good Morning America right now. That's fine. Start small. Start with your local morning TV show.
Okay.
Start with sort of like a niche TV show or niche online and work your way up. Collect the clips is what they're called from back in the day.
Yes.
Collect the clips and then use those as part of your pitch to Good Morning America because the thing with Good Morning America is you might not have a fit, they might not have the space, but also if you've not done a lot, if you don't have a lot of clips, they're not going to want to take a chance that you're going to freeze up on TV or something, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
they want
Yeah.
to see it.
You're in the headlights. That gas
Right?
is no good. They can't be on here. Right. Yeah, that makes
Exactly.
sense. So, could we talk for a minute about how to construct a pitch? Like, how do we even, so we found some people to talk to. We found a couple of editors that we think, or writers, journalists, who we think we can get in front of. What do we say to them? Like, hey, I got this great thing, you should love it too. So what?
Nope.
That's the wrong thing, right? Good. I got it wrong in the first try. That was my aim. So let's fix that. What do we say?
We want to make sure that our pitch is as concise as possible. We don't we never want to give away everything in the pitch, right? We
Yeah.
want to create some reason for them to contact us
Yes.
to get the whole story.
Yes.
Now, that's not being clickbaity, it's not being cagey, it's just we want to be short so that they actually read it, and if they're interested, they will call. So you want to begin the pitch with the reason for the pitch, right? You don't need a lot of preamble. You don't need to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, oh, I've read all of your articles and I think you're the best person to cover X, like that kind of stuff. What's that
Butt
called?
kissing.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yes, that's it.
We can say that. I try to keep it clean because some people let their kids listen. So, but yeah, don't be a kiss up.
Yes, but you do want to tell them why they are the right person for the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know that you cover you know, fall fashion. I'm
Mm-hmm.
totally making this up, but I
Yeah.
know that you cover fall. Well, here's this. I know that you cover releases of fall fashions collections, and we have one coming up, and it's going to be X, Y, and Z. I think your audience is going to like it for, you know, whatever the reasons are, the benefits to the audience are. I'm available for interview. I'm available if you would like to get a sneak peek at the collection, that kind of thing. That's a
Okay.
great pitch.
Okay. All right. So now I have helped people to sell clothing and other, other all kinds of other goods in retail, offline and online. But the differentiator to a journalist is going to be different, right? Than a differentiator to a potential customer.
Yeah.
Or,
Yes.
how can we like really how do we put some real wow into this to make people say, because with the customers, like, I can't live another minute without this shirt. To a journalist, how do we help them make the customer make that connection? I think that's what we need to do in the next stage of this, right?
Right. So you need to tie into what their audience cares about. So even though they are a fashion writer, for instance, what is it about fashion that that particular journalist or publication's audience cares about?
Okay.
Is it fashion that, again, is sustainable, you know, eco-friendly?
Yeah.
Is it fashion that is made in the US? Is
Right.
it fashion that is easy to wear and, you know, you don't have to worry about maintenance of it? Like, what is the actual thing about fashion?
Okay.
Is it couture? You know,
Right.
right? Is
Yep.
it something that, you know, here's the brand name, here's you know, the our version of it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
cost comparison. Like,
Sure.
what is the actual thing, and focus on that. And
Okay.
that's why, honestly, a pitch is more effective than a press release, because a press release, you can't do that level of personalization.
Yeah.
But in a pitch, you absolutely can.
Right. I'm so glad that you made that distinction because so the press release follows a certain format. It's like a template. It's a couple paragraphs, 2 through 5. I've seen different versions of them, but it's very generic
Right.
and not really helpful. But when you're forging a relationship with somebody, you want to say exactly what they want to make it useful. So that that point is well taken. I mean, I
Mhm.
hear what you're saying about that. And so the pitch to, let's say, I get a hold of the fashion editor at the Washington Post, for example,
Mhm.
and I don't even know if they have one. So because I just made that up. And I know that publication, because I have gone and read past articles that they've published in there, and I've targeted a journalist and then reach out and say, hey, I saw your piece. I have this. You'll love it. Tell me if I've gone too far off so far.
Right. I saw your piece where you were talking about, you know, how the fall season we're going to see more of zippers than we do buttons. Clearly, I am not a fashion person, but let's just say that's the trend. We're
I
seeing
love
more
that.
zippers than buttons. You know, our whole collection for the fall is featuring zippers in unique places so that you have more capacity to hold items. So let's just say the pitch is for the post.
Yeah.
Yes, we totally are on track with you. That's why our whole fall collection features zippers, right? That's your pitch for the post. Your
Yes.
pitch for, you know, some sort of a mom related blog where they talk about fashion is our whole collection features zippers, which, as you know, is the trend for the fall. We've added them in some unique places so that the trendy mom has more capacity to hold things when they're out and about with their children. Two
That's
different
cool.
pitches.
Yes. Yes. That's really specialized.
Right.
What you just did. And any brand could do that.
Right.
You know, just differentiate, find out what the journalist has written in the past and tie that to how you can help the journalist make the connection.
Exactly.
It,
And especially when you're going outside of fashion, like we were talking about before, if, you know, let's say your fashion brand is okay, this is a wild example, but let's say your
good. I
fashion
like wild.
brand is focused on all of the colors in Adobe's color of the year palette.
Oh, of
Okay.
course.
Okay, maybe
Yes,
that's
I
a
work with
thing.
people who do that.
Really?
Yeah, they've got color of the year, 20, 21, 22, and that's a section of their store. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then let's say you go to a publication or a blog that talks about the use of color, right?
Yep.
That's not a fashion publication, but
Hmm.
you could make the argument, right? You could make the pitch
Hmm.
that they would want to cover your line
Yeah.
because it's based on the colors of
Yes.
it's based on the color of the year.
That's
So I think that's where you have to really think about, okay, I call it a media wish list.
mhm.
You dump all of the public, you dump, I use publications generically. It could be radio, it could be podcast, whatever, right? You
Mhm.
dump it all on a list and then you start ranking it. And then you go 10 at a time. Who are the 10 that you're going to pitch at any one time? Because if you try and do too many and they all pop, then that's a lot, right, on your plate. And you can't manage the follow-ups appropriately, right? So you focus on 10. And you know, maybe a few of those are traditional
Yeah.
media,
Yeah.
maybe a few of those are online, and maybe a few of those are these, okay, these are kind of outside of the box where we're going to have to connect the dots a little bit more, but wow, if we get that placement, that's going to be fantastic.
Yes. Bingo. That's why we're doing this, because if we get that placement, I mean, imagine, well, I don't have to imagine. I have an expert sitting in front of me. So how far afield are we going to be shared if we get the right contact and the right pitch and things go well? How great is that?
Well, think about it. If you're, again, this fashion brand that focuses a collection on colors of the year, Adobe color of the year, and you get placed in a design publication,
Yeah.
just think about that juxtaposition, right? And how people are going to talk about that because, oh my gosh, there's a fashion line in my trade publication, right?
Yep. Yep.
They're going to talk about that. They're going to share that. That's going to be potentially more valuable than if you were in a bread and butter fashion placement. If you have
Yes.
bread and butter fashion placement, not
Right.
a big national one, but maybe sort of like your mid-tier or low tier ones.
Well,
So
sure. I mean, if you're in Topeka, Kansas, and you're in the fashion section, because then there are syndications too. So
sure.
you could end up other places. So I used to count on that. I used to write a newspaper article, and I would just pray that the thing would get picked up. It never did. But I know. So, and that was just a small town newspaper, but that's what happens. That's how syndications happen. But to your point, the thing about, let's say you're in Topeka, Kansas, you get your thing picked up, and suddenly Good Morning America calls because somebody saw
Yes.
thing about your color of the year line, And
And
there you go.
and that's why I think it's always smart. I recommend this to everybody that I work with or talk to, ask for advice. It's very smart to start small because the Topeka, Kansas, ABC affiliate. Wait, is Good Morning America on ABC? Oh my gosh. Yeah. No,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
are they ABC? They're not NBC. NBC is the Today Show.
I think it could
I
be,
think Good Morning
yes.
America is ABC. I
Yeah, I
think so.
think
Yeah.
so. I don't know
Mhm.
why are we doubting ourselves?
No,
Anyway,
we know. We know. We're sure. We're certain of it.
if you get on the local, let's just say it this way, if you get on the local affiliate
Yes.
and you do a great job there and somebody picks it up, sees a producer at Good Morning America, sees it
Mhm.
and asks you to be on their show, well, that's a win for the Topeka too, right? Like, because
Yes.
that's what they want. They want to have national audience as well, and to know that either Good Morning America just completely picks up the segment and just rebroadcasts it, which is great for Topeka, or they invite you, but to know that you were invited through Topeka, now Topeka's on Good Morning America's radar.
Yes.
So I think it makes sense always to start small because you just never know where that's going to lead.
So how frequently are we doing a PR program? Because if we get picked up once, that's nice, but that's like that one viral video that, you're famous for like half an hour or half a day. That's it. But
Right.
so how do we do this and keep doing it?
So depending on your business, depending
Mhm.
on what you sell through your e-commerce store, you could have a steady drumbeat where you're always sending information. You're always releasing new products that are newsworthy, or you've got a new collaboration partner, or you have a new sponsor, or something like that, right? You've got news that you can consistently share, or you have these big things that happen a couple times a year
Yes.
where you want to put some real time and effort and potentially dollars behind it. And so you're doing it as those come up.
Okay. So those could be things like not just sale events, but other type of events, like you're doing, a gathering. I work with a couple of crafting companies. So you're doing a gathering based on the crafting items that they sell, or
Yeah, I would say it's probably not a sales event because that's not newsworthy.
right.
That's advertising, right? Now you're in that, really you should be in a paid ad if you
Yeah.
want to promote your sale.
Okay.
Um, but a newsworthy hook might be, if these crafters are coming together to hold, the world's largest craft fair or
Mm,
something like that, or if they're doing, crafting X number of pieces in 24 hours, something like
yes.
that. That's
Yes.
newsworthy,
That is right.
right? Or if you are releasing launching a collection, that's newsworthy.
That's
Or if
interesting. I'm going to interrupt here for a second. A sales event is advertising, but releasing a new collection is newsworthy. Can
it
you
de-
say more about that?
yeah, it definitely depends though on who you're approaching for the launch of that collection,
Got it.
right?
Yep, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, it's not a hard news story. It's more of people who like to talk about new collections.
Yes. Okay.
So in like
So
yeah,
so
in
if you're
between,
reaching the right editor or the right journalist, then the new collection is interesting to them, but you have to help them make that connection, right?
right? Like, what's besides the launch of the collection, what's the unique angle of it?
Right. Now we're into color of the year, or a new type of eco-friendly
Material,
fabric,
right?
or yeah. Okay. All right. So, okay, well, that's crazy. All right, I like it. So steady drumbeat. How these are business people who are wearing 8,000 different hats, and they're doing, some of them are really small. They're doing their own pick, pack, and ship. How do they, how can a small business work that regular drumbeat into their PR program? How can they do that?
I would say plan it out. If you can't do the whole year, if that's too overwhelming or you don't know what the whole year is, I would say do at least 6 months at a
Mm.
time.
Hmm.
And here's why. If you have um, stories that do have this more national traditional media appeal, the LA Times, the New York Times, the Post, whatever, those are longer lead times.
Yes.
And so you're going to want to make sure that you have everything ready to make those pitches, which is why editorial calendars are so helpful, because you'll know when they're doing something that might fit with what you'd offer. Like you
And
might
if you're
be able to,
small enough and nimble enough, you can actually create something that,
yeah,
oh, it's coming down the pike. We can,
right,
fit this event to fit their calendar and move from there. But you have to be pretty small and nimble to be able to do that.
right. And you have to know when it's happening.
Yeah.
And so that's why planning is so important.
Hmm.
And then the other thing is if you have products that are appropriate for gift guides,
Mm.
well, they're doing those now.
Yeah.
So, even though the gift guide doesn't hit the stand until November, December, they're actually thinking about what are they going to put in it right now. So now's the time to be pitching for them, which is, what is that, 4 months ahead,
Yeah.
probably even a little bit late now, but
Yep.
4 months ahead for the large long leads. It could be, shorter cycle for TV for sure. Your local
Hmm.
TV is a much shorter cycle. Your local print is probably a shorter cycle, but these national publications have longer leads. And
Yes.
so planning it out at least 6 months ahead is going to be you're going to be able to take advantage of more opportunities.
That's cool. That's super cool. Okay, I really like that. I really like the idea of, because everybody can do a gift guide. Everybody can participate in that. That's kind of low-hanging fruit. Are there other kinds of, I mean, gift guides, that's a third quarter leading into fourth quarter kind of thing. If what other annual cycle sorts of things are there other is there other low what I'm trying to ask is there other low hanging fruit that is similar to a gift guide that maybe happens another time of year
Yeah.
so that we have another thing that we can we
Yeah.
know that these two times a year we do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why looking at those editorial calendars for your wish list publications will be helpful, because you'll start to see if they do have patterns, which they
They
almost
do.
always do,
Yeah.
right? So there's wellness in the beginning of the year. There's
Oh
always
yeah.
something wellness
Right.
related. So
Yes.
if you have a leisure brand, that
Mm-hmm.
might work. In the middle of the year, the summertime, there's always summer, right? The summer issue.
Yep.
But then there's also usually women
Right.
come out in the middle of the year. So if your product appeals to women, that
Yep.
would be the right time to make the pitch for that.
Yep.
There's Halloween.
Yeah.
That's always a big one.
Yep.
So again, 4 to 6 months out,
Yep.
start thinking about your Halloween pitch.
Yep. I love this. I love this. Andrea, we're running short on time, but I want to I've got two more questions for you. The first one is what haven't we talked about yet that just a basic if someone's got a basic PR program that they want to put together, what haven't we talked about yet that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, there's really 5 things, right?
Cool.
There's creating the wish list. So
Mhm.
where do you want to be published? Because it makes sense for their audience and aligns with yours. Who's the right person to build that relationship with, and do as much research as you can on them, because the pitch might not necessarily be a straight ahead about your collection. It could be, hey, you in your research you found out on their Twitter profile that they really are involved with the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
And
good, good.
and you're a part of the Boys and Girls. That could be your entree point. So
Yes.
do research. The next thing is what we're just talking about, which is, okay, what is the actual benefit? Like what are you offering? What is your message? What is your message? And then what are the hooks? And then then think about, okay, based on who's on your wish list, how do you need to tailor those hooks, right? Like I get all of that ready. You're going to still do some customization as you make the actual pitch, but at least you have the bones ready to go, right?
Yep. Yep.
Then put all of your materials together. Put your press materials together, your high res and low res photos of your products, yourself, your logo, your bio, your long and short bio, all of those pieces together so they're really easy to access
Yeah.
when you need them.
Yeah.
And then the fifth thing is to make the pitch.
Ooh, that's scary, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's cool. That's great. I love those 5 things. I wrote them down. That's that's pure gold. That's great. Thank you. So
Sure.
so that was question 1 of 2. Question 2, since we are running out of time, is how do people get a hold of you? Because you are just such a valuable asset to people, brands, companies who want some help getting this stuff done. How do people reach you?
Thank you. So my website is hubandcompany.com, which is probably the best place. I call that my digital oasis. And actually on there, I offer PR power hours,
Oh, nice.
which is a 1 hour strategy session. So if somebody wants help to figure out what is the right angle for their product, who should they be looking at from a publication standpoint, what should their press materials look like, or do they have the right, whatever it is that
Yeah.
somebody needs help with in order to make the pitch.
Yep.
That's what those are for. So I would be happy to help anybody who wants to do that.
That's phenomenal. That is so cool. Andrea, thank you so
Yes.
much for being here today.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
you really have uncovered some very practical ways for people to get, public relations and the press that goes with that. I mean, unbelievably valuable. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Traffic Handler Podcast. We're about getting new customers, making more sales, and growing your e-commerce retail business. I'm your host, Amy Biddle. Get more at amybiddle.me. And until next time, go sell more stuff.